I'm nervous.
That's okay. You can be nervous.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Pod Sound School. I'm Veronica, and today I'm here with Studio Steve.
Hello, everyone.
For those of you who are barely tuning in, here at the Pod Sound School, we teach artists, entrepreneurs, creators, business owners, and whoever is interested in podcasting to develop their own shows and get into podcasting and have a successful podcast.
Mm-hmm.
We are constantly presented with the question, how do we promote our podcasts?
Yeah, how do we grow our podcast?
How do we
find more listeners?
How do we find more listeners? And that's a question that we had ourselves when we started podcasting a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and that's still a question we have, and I think that's a question every business has, everybody has. And many people use podcasting for their business as a way to find more listeners and as a way to branch out. And since that's what we're specializing in doing, and you decide you do want to use a podcast to, expand your business, then you need to know how to find your listeners. You need to know how to present yourself on all of the different social platforms.
So our episode today is a very informative one, and that's how to promote your podcast on Twitter in a way that is effective, and it's a way that, and in a way that's going to bring listeners, and in a way that is going to help you grow your audience.
Yes.
But before we dive into this, today we're filming ourselves while we record our episode.
Yes.
We're trying this new thing. And if you want to have access to the unedited, raw video
with all of our mistakes,
with all our bloopers and mistakes, which are many, 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 and all of the information too, because there's certain things that won't be included in the podcast for the sake of time.
Yeah.
Just head over our Patreon and sign up for Patreon, and you can have access to all those sweet videos.
Yeah,
what else?
As we keep posting them there, and you also get your own unique RSS feed, and you can come check out the Patreon. We're going to be adding more free videos you can see there too. That's just free for everyone to see, kind of bloopers, behind the scenes stuff. And it's patreon.com/podsoundschool, and we'll leave the link in this episode as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah.
So let's dive into it. What's important.
Yeah, Twitter.
Okay, Twitter. So how did you get to be the Twitter expert for Pod Sound School?
I don't know. I think it's because Twitter is where I started with previous podcasts, and so I already knew a lot about Twitter. I remember before I got into Twitter, I was very timid about it. I didn't like it, and I think that Twitter is...
Yeah, I remember you are not a social media person.
No, I'm not a social media person at all. So that's been a huge challenge for me, the whole Pod Sound School thing, is getting into social media, but... You didn't even have a Facebook account. No, I just barely started my Facebook account. So you're kind of the Instagram girl, and I'm the Twitter boy.
Yes.
My previous Twitter experience overall, the time that I've been doing it, I've made a lot of mistakes. And you've gone through now training and courses, and we've been doing so much research, and we're still by no means experts. And also, before we get into this, I think that is something that, one size doesn't fit all when it comes to a social media strategy.
Yeah, you're right.
And you definitely have to, on each platform this goes, you can take bits and pieces, and everything that we're going to talk about today it's food for thought. A lot of times the advice that people give us, it's, I like the idea of maybe taking people's advice half the time, and then the other half of the time totally ignoring it and just going with your own creative. Because sometimes completely ignoring the rules or the guidelines and trying something new is what's going to make you stand out on social media.
Yeah, like listen to the experts, but do your own thing as well.
Yeah.
Because that is what sets you apart.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start with telling our podskis, is Twitter good for podcasts? For podcasting?
Yeah, so we were talking about this a little bit when we were preparing for this episode. And, when you're first starting your podcast, if you're just completely on your own, you're doing a one-man show, and you only wanted to start with one social platform, I would say Twitter.
Really?
Yeah. I think you might not say that. You might argue.
I would. Yeah, I'm an Instagram girl.
Yeah.
So.
The reason I would say Twitter is because there are so many podcasters are there, and I think that's the biggest thing about Twitter is that, and it's commonly misunderstood. It's also very undervalued. Virtually every niche is present there, and mostly it's because every podcaster is there. So many podcasters are there, and it's so easy to find podcasters, and fellow podcasters, especially podcasters in your niche, are very supportive. They will help you cross promote. There's all sorts of strategies you can have with them. Are
we going to be talking about these strategies later?
Yes.
Okay.
We are. The other reason to be there is it's very powerful as far as building authority. It's a very easy place to tell people to come. And it's a very easy platform to automate and to create some automated practices on it. And it's easy to get started. It's a great place where conversation happens. And it's a cool place to create content and stuff like that. And also for us, it's a place where we've met some longtime friends that are still our friends and fellow colleagues, business colleagues to this day, like Eric Hunley from the Unstructured podcast. We met the Honesty Check girls there. We met non-mom happy hour, Nothing Ever Happens in Canada podcast, Origins of Species, Meet My Ghost, many others. Those all came from Twitter. So it's an incredible networking place to be at. And
I don't know anything about Twitter, but I would argue that you should, if it's just you should make the effort to be on Twitter and Instagram.
Yeah, probably,
even if you're not on Facebook.
Yeah, even if you're not on Facebook, the Twitter and Instagram are a good duo to start with. And then as you grow, as you get more time, maybe as you can hire somebody, then you can start to go into Facebook, LinkedIn, Pinterest, things like that.
Okay, so why don't you tell us a little bit of how to get started on Twitter? What's important, what's not important, what has worked for us, what hasn't?
Yeah, okay. So basically just with Twitter, what's important is your Twitter handle, and this goes into what we've talked about in other episodes when you're doing your podcast, when you're doing your preparation, your planning, is to don't just pick a Twitter handle that works, find one that is hopefully the same Twitter handle that you intend on having on Instagram.
Yes.
So do a little research. If you can have the same exact Twitter handle that will be available everywhere. So if your podcast name isn't available as a Twitter handle, then find some variations of it and then check that variation is also available on Instagram.
Okay.
And it's just good practice to take some time with your name and make sure it's the title that you're going to keep for your podcast. Make sure you're settled on the title for your podcast before getting the Twitter handle. So that's pretty important.
Okay, so an example would be like, let's say I have a podcast and it's called Tango with Veronica. So that's I have to use that handle everywhere.
Tango
right?
with Veronica, and it's not available. So then you could say
Tango with Veronica podcast.
Tango with Veronica podcast. If that's too long, you could say Tango with Veronica pod. You could say Veronica Tango or the Vero Tango or Tango with Vero, and find some shortened way to do it. But that's also what you use on Instagram, and then you might even consider that being the URL for your website eventually as well too.
Yeah, that's important.
I think it's a good idea to set up all these social media accounts before getting your website set up, just so that you know more about kind of what you need to SEO for, what you need to optimize for, because what your handles are, and then you can your handles are pretty important. And the next thing that's really important is your bio statement and your description. And well into all your crazy Instagram research you've been doing how important this is. Well, it's equally as important on Twitter. It's a place where this is the first thing people see in a lot of cases. In fact, on Twitter, it's really the only thing they see. You have a pinned tweet, you have a profile picture, you have your handle, and you have your bio statement. And other than that, there's nothing else. They can look into your media, they can look into your tweets and things like that if they want to dig a little deeper, but generally people don't. People are going to see your tweets mostly. And then if they click on your handle, they click to see you need a bio statement that makes them want to follow you. And so in that statement, it's really important, and it's good to talk about yourself, be creative, be funny, and
Talk to your audience directly.
Talk to your audience directly.
What you are providing for them.
Yeah, what do you provide for them? And
is it entertainment? Is it humor? Is it information?
Is it education? Is it a service? What are you doing with your Twitter account? All those things. And you want to be very clear, well worded, and a lot of people will clutter their bio with hashtags.
I hate that.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that. But it's different than Instagram. Where in Instagram, I don't think you even need to have a hashtag in your bio. But in Twitter, it's not a bad idea to put a couple hashtags in there.
You can be found through those hashtags?
You can be found through those hashtags, yeah. So you could start ranking for them. So like hashtag podcast would be a decent one. Or specifically more, I would say you're going to be found more for the niched down ones, the ones that aren't quite so popular, that get 450 tweets an hour, so like if you had a true crime podcast, you could say like true crime, or maybe even in your local area, or if there's something specific to your podcast, like if it's a business podcast for agriculture or something, you could find a hashtag that's relevant and just put one or two hashtags in your bio. And then also with getting started, then I talked about you have a banner and you have a profile picture. Profile picture kind of works the same as it does on all other social media places where people respond more to faces. So a nice close-up face, it's a circular picture, so a nice close-up where you look good and there's a bright color in the background will work really well. If you're already a recognized business, a logo's good. And then in your banner, with that too, some nice text. That's a nice place for text that can have your little tagline that you have for your business or your podcast, things like that tell people kind of what you stand for. And then also your colors. It's really important to think about branding.
Branding is key.
And this goes into, you and I on Twitter, we've done a ton of rate review swaps, hundreds and hundreds of rate review swaps. And we've listened to hundreds of podcasts and talked with hundreds of podcasters. And something that we always get very frustrated with is when people aren't very easily searchable, because you ask somebody to come check you out, and if they actually do, which is going to be few and far between, because people don't want to do work to find you.
Yeah.
And if they do go through the work to find you and they can't, and the logo, the profile picture, and the banner on your Twitter is completely different than what's on your iTunes artwork, that's not going to be fun. And so all of that, you need to make sure that you're branded and that you use similar colors, similar logos, that you look the same on Twitter, that you look on Instagram, that you look on iTunes, that you look on Spotify, that you look everywhere.
Yeah. And some of you may be thinking, Studio Steve, I don't need to think about branding because I'm not monetizing out of my podcast, or this isn't what I'm going to do with my podcast. But I would argue that if you are producing episodes every week, if you have a podcast on different directories, and you have a website too, then you are involved in branding.
Yeah, you are a brand.
You are a brand. Whether you like it or not. You have to be consistent. So when people Google you, so when people try to find you, then it's easy for them. You are very accessible if you use the same colors, if you use the same logo, the same fonts, if you yourself, if you are your brand, then it's something that identifies you and people can find you. And, if we're talking, for those who are entrepreneurs and business owners, you guys know what we're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, so that's it. I think that's about it for getting started.
Okay. So let's move on now to the best Twitter practices.
Okay.
Talk to us about that.
This will probably be the biggest section of this episode, which is tweeting, creating a good tweet.
Yes.
Because that's why you're on Twitter Twitter is all about words and short words. You said that Naval calls them microblogs. Yeah. 280 characters. So it's all about a good headline. And professional writers and everything, sometimes they spend as much time on their headline as they do on the whole article. It's all about a headline. And there's some fun tools that you can use to help you get creative with your headline. I really like titlegenerator.com, which is they generate.
That one's fun.
Yeah, it's really fun. They generate headlines for you. You can put in the topic of your episode or whatever. Yes. It'll come up with some great headlines. Include numbers. People respond to numbers for some reason. You just put a number 8, a number 56 in there. People are a lot more likely to click on it. It's weird. Also,
So what would be an example of that? Like 4 ways of baking a cake, or
or 5 things you didn't know about whatever.
okay.
15 tips you can have. 15 tips for finding a dog washing facility or whatever. I don't know, but yeah. And then people also respond more to verbs than nouns. Those are just little tips. Powerthesaurus.org is one of my favorites to find some more descriptive words, or to, get out of your brain a little bit and add some words to your vocabulary. But spending time with your headline and with your copy will improve your engagements. Absolutely.
Yeah, copy is very important.
And emojis work really well too in tweets, especially if they're
Pertinent,
but yeah, if they're relevant.
Emojis are the bane of my existence.
Yes.
Remember how I used to say the pain of my existence? The pain of my existence.
They are.
Because they're a pain.
And that works better than Bane anyway.
Right?
Yeah. Or is it Bane? And now I just thought vein, like the veins in your forehead.
No. Did I say vein?
No, but I don't know.
Oh my gosh. I used to say the pain of my existence, and Studio Steve pointed it out that that wasn't.
It's not the pain of her existence.
It's not the pain of my existence.
While we're on that, what's my other favorite one of yours is if something from the skies.
Oh yeah, it's like
what is it?
An angel in disguise. And I say,
you're something in disguise. You're an angel or you're a blessing.
A blessing.
When somebody says you're a blessing in disguise, you say you're a blessing in the skies. That's my favorite. A blessing in the skies. Okay. So tweets. The best thing about tweets.
I'm gonna make fun of your Spanish.
The best thing about tweets, and this is why another reason I think it's better than Instagram, is they allow you to put links in your tweets. That's incredible.
Yes, that is something that Instagram doesn't allow on its posts.
No. And backing up from when we were talking about the bio statement, you can, after the bio statement in your information, you can also include a website link, and you only get one link. So that's where you could create a landing page or use something like linktree.com, so people could click on that one link, and you can add multiple links to everywhere they can find you.
Okay.
But if you're first starting out and you don't have a lot of places, or you're trying to do a big iTunes push to get on New and Noteworthy or something, you can just put the iTunes link there in that website link as well. So now this is where our strategy has changed lately as we've been learning and learning. The first inclination we have with Twitter, and I think is the same inclination we had with the same inclination that a lot of people would have when they're first getting into social media, is it's a place to promote your own podcast, right? So the first thing is like, okay, well, tell people when your new episodes come out. Ask people, try to find creative ways of asking people to come over and listen to your podcast, right? Oh, we just dropped a new episode and it's really funny and you should come check it out because it'll make you laugh or whatever.
Yes.
What we're finding now is that should only be about 25% of your tweets. And on Twitter, you should tweet a lot. You should be tweeting 10 times a day.
Yeah, that's different from Instagram, because in Instagram, you don't want to get people like bored with your stuff, posting stuff.
Yeah, and Twitter,
on your feed too
Twitter,
often.
you disappear very quickly. So you could even tweet 20 times a day.
Really?
Yeah, as long as you are switching up your hashtags, because if you keep hitting that same hashtag pool, but if it's a big hashtag like hashtag podcasting, it's huge. So you can tweet into that 20 times a day and you'll disappear and you'll go to the bottom of that hashtag conversation very quickly. So don't just tweet promotions for your show. The whole idea is thinking about each of your social platforms as another place for you to create content and provide value. I was just listening to Gary Vee yesterday, and he was talking about how a lot of times the micro content is more important than the macro content. So a lot of times these little micro pieces of content that we make, that we post on Instagram and Twitter and things like that, that's actually what's going to get us noticed. That's actually what's going to reach a bigger audience than the podcast itself or than the YouTube channel itself.
Yes.
It's the micro content.
So as an example, I would say that going back to the Tango with Veronica. So instead of promoting my podcast relentlessly, just saying like 3 or 4 tips of how to tango properly.
Yeah.
Or the right shoes for tango, or the right outfit or apparel, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, just funny things all about tango. Cool clips to your favorite tango musicians. What you're doing is you are creating a culture and a hub that people can come to learn all about tangoing.
Yes.
Once they do that, then they rely on you for that information.
Articles, blogs about other people.
Articles,
This is
blogs.
another thing that I'm finding interesting, that people are hesitant to promote other people's work when that's the strategy.
That's a really great
The key is
strategy.
to provide value to your audience.
To your
That's
audience,
the key.
yes.
It can be with your own content, or it can be with somebody else's content.
Yeah. And when you're especially when you're first starting out, or when you don't have the time to create tons of pieces of content, another big thing that's exploded our brains lately is this idea of content curation. And you asked me what the definition of curation is.
Yes.
Well, curation, the definition from Merriam-Webster, is the selection of performers or performances that will feature in an arts event or program, or like a selection, organization, and presentation of online content. So what you're doing is you're a curator. So you're going to go find a bunch of interesting articles that are relevant to your niche, that you know your ideal listener and your ideal audience would like to hear and would like to consume. You go find all that content and you post it on your platform.
Add
for
a
them.
little caption or comment.
Add a fun caption or comment about it. Add your thoughts on it, and then give it to your audience. People will start to respond to that a lot.
And it can even be articles that you don't agree with if you want to create a little bit of controversy.
Yeah, creating controversies. That's a great thing to do on Twitter, is to say, hey, this person thinks this about tango. They think that tango is for wimps. Do you agree or disagree? And then you could start a poll about it. You can start.
Or they think that 60-year-olds can't tango.
Yeah. You know, anything you want. And you can see how very immediately start your thought process changes. Now, in doing this, what you want to do when you curate this content and provide this content on your tweets is also make sure to include handles of the source. So the person who wrote the article, they're on Twitter. Find where they are on Twitter, include their handle in your tweet. And what this is going to do is it's going to start also providing you a way to network with people inside your niche. And it makes you look informed. It gives you authority. You are the authority on tango. Now people are going to go listen to your podcast a lot more because they trust that you know what you're talking about. Even if you don't really read all these articles to their fullest, you know, even if
you just skim.
And now now that's informative stuff. If you're entertainment, if you're a comedy podcast or something like that, then just find funny clips. Be funny, be outrageous. Film yourself doing outrageous, funny things that work with your type of comedy, and post those constantly, separate from your clips. You and your co-host should be filming yourself with your phones all the time and blast in Twitter with different funny tweets.
That leads me to a question I had for you. It's what kind of content can you post on Twitter? Can you post like GIFs and videos?
You can post everything: GIFs, videos, pictures. Pictures perform very well. You can post
better than videos, or videos too.
Videos perform well too, but pictures perform really well on Twitter a lot. And GIFs, Twitter's just cluttered with GIFs. I'm not sure if I think how well GIFs perform on Twitter or not, because they're so overused.
And how long can your videos be?
That I don't know for sure, but they can be pretty long.
Oh, okay.
Now, after all of that, and now that you know that Twitter, or having this idea in mind that your Twitter account's a place for you to create content. It's not a place for you to promote your content. It's actually a place where you're creating content. That's something that we didn't even think about at first, and I don't think a lot of people think about that at first. So spend 75% of the time creating content on the platform, and 25% of the time telling people about your new episodes and directing people over. And then include the mentions or @, and then in your Twitter, like Veronica was just mentioning about content include a nice picture. Canva is a wonderful tool that we've been loving.
Yes.
There's also this Adobe Spark, which we just fell into, and we're big Adobe fans. I'm just big about the Adobe Creative Cloud, or the Creative Suite, you'll hear it called. It's a monthly membership, but it gives you access to all of the Adobe products, which is amazing. So you can get Spark, and you can get Spark Video and Spark Posting, which just helps streamline the process and also helps your pictures look very professional.
So you're creating... What kind of content you're creating with Canva?
Well, with Canva, you're creating pictures, graphical images
that will go with your
with your links and go with your posts.
Okay. So give me an example.
An example of that is with the Tango. You would take a picture of. You would go into Canva and type in Tango, and a bunch of photos would come up.
Oh.
Or a picture of a rose, or a funny man with a rose in his mouth, and you would say a 60-year-old man with a rose in his mouth. And then that picture would go along with the tweet you mentioned.
60-year-olds can tango too.
Yeah, 60-year-olds can tango too. Between the copy that you write that's really cool and that, you're going to draw people to that tweet.
Okay.
And what's cool about Canva is they have really good... Already, they have a bunch of built-in templates specific for Twitter posts. So you go in there and they have a Twitter post template with a ton of different templates that have really eye-catching captions already built into them. Because that's one way that people on Twitter will get around the 280 character limit, is by including more characters, more font, more type in their pictures.
Oh, okay.
So,
and if you're getting a little overwhelmed with all the resources we're throwing out at you, don't worry. We're going to have the links to those included in the
episode description.
The episode description.
Yeah, so just check that out. Now, the other thing that you can include in your tweets that seem to be pretty popular are audiograms. Audiograms, if you don't know what that is where you see the WAV file playing in reaction to the audio that is playing along, and it's usually a WAV file over the top of a picture. This is a quick and easy way for people to sort of repurpose little clips from their podcast episodes, and I think those are really great. Those are awesome. You find a nice place. You can also add captions to those as well, because a lot of times, same as you do on Instagram, as people are scrolling through the timeline, they don't have the audio on, or the audio is defaulted as muted. So it's cool to, when you see a picture, to see an audiogram moving on it. You're like, oh, there's audio there. I'm going to expand or expand this tweet and hear what's going on in there.
So how do you create the audiograms?
Oh, yeah. There's two popular ways of creating the audiograms, are Headliner that you can go to, and Wave, which is spelled with two V's.
Okay.
Both of those will create them automatically for you. Headliner is really cool because if you pay for the paid version of Headliner, it comes with a ton of stock photography and stock videos and stock music. And I'm all about getting that, because the more royalty-free stock stuff you have at your access, the more you can quickly and it's all about making this content creation efficient.
Yeah. And fun.
And fun, too.
It has to be fun.
It does.
It has to be fun for you, because there's a lot of content creation that you're going to have to get into. But it's fun stuff.
Yes. And then finally, before we leave the content and the tweeting, there are many tools that will help you with this content creation as well. Some free. All of the free tools, of course, are going to drive you into their sales funnel and get you to eventually pay a monthly membership if you want to unlock all the benefits. But you can get so many benefits from the free versions. A few to mention right off the bat are Later for Instagram.
For automation.
And Later also works really well for Twitter. We're using it right now for Twitter, and it's wonderful. Buffer is also really cool. Buffer works with blog posts specifically, but it also works with other things. Very popular. Has a free version that allows you to post 4 times a day to Twitter, which is cool. Later.
So that's what you do. You schedule. Could you talk a little bit more about automation?
Yeah, so automation is
why is it just so fabulous to have that? Well,
it's so cool, especially if you're doing it between platforms, because you can so quickly repurpose a post that you're putting into Twitter into an Instagram post, and then into a Facebook post especially, and then into a LinkedIn post as well. Just with a few different clicks and a few adjustments of hashtags and a few adjustments of copy, so that it fits better to that platform. And so it's also a really easy way to, find a few blogs, for example, dance blogs, tango blogs, even things that relate to tango, flamenco, and people that you love. Subscribe to their blog so you get updates of when they post a new blog. Whenever they post a new blog, copy that link, throw it into Buffer, write a quick little copy about it, and send it off into your channels. Or there's other companies like Q, and Q is QUUU, 3 U's, that will actually go and find content for you based off of a category and automatically upload those into your Buffer account for you, which will automated send a bunch of content into your social media channels without you having to do anything. Which is
awesome.
It's pretty cool. And the captions are already written in there and everything else too, which is pretty cool. So there's lots of content curation is definitely worth your time to learn about because it has a lot to do with automation. Now, when it comes to automation with Twitter, you want to find a nice balance between automation and being real.
Yeah, you don't want to make it impersonal.
No, the automation sometimes gets a bad rap because it becomes impersonal. It's all along you have your ideal listener in mind. You have your customer you're in mind. You have your audience member in mind. What do they want? They don't want to be automated too.
They don't. No, and this is very important. Content. Social media is there so you can connect with people, so you can find your people and connect with them and communicate with them and have conversations and invite them into your world. So you don't want to be too automated. Yeah, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
So to recap, the best Twitter practices.
The best practices with tweeting are good headline, use title generator, get creative, spend time on each and every one of your headlines. You'll get more engagement. Include a picture. Use tools like Canva or Spark to create good graphical content, and curate content, automate some content. Copy. And those are your good Twitter practices. Only include 2 to 3 hashtags, relevant hashtags in each tweet. I'm not sure if I covered that or not. You don't want to litter your tweets with hashtags. They make them hard to read and they seem really spammy. Only 2 to 3 hashtags. That's all you need in a tweet. And then finally we can, there's a few other topics we wanted to cover, which is...
Yes, this is very important.
That's very important.
How do you get followers? Yeah, just tell us, how do you get followers?
How do you get followers? So it's different on every social platform for sure. Facebook will just shut you down if you start unfollowing. I know from experience. Yeah. And they won't give me my account back. I give them my driver's license and everything. Those bastards. Okay.
Why? I just don't understand your irrational hatred against Facebook.
I don't know. I just, there's just some things in life you choose to just dislike. And Facebook's one of them. But also, you notice sometimes in life you attract the thing you hate the most, because now I'm on Facebook Live every Wednesday. And that's giving me conniption fits.
Podcasting for buses, people.
Yes.
If you haven't joined our Facebook group, you should. We have a lot of fun things over there. We go live every Wednesdays at 6.
Yep.
And just come and join us so you can see Steven going through the pains.
The pains and the suffering.
Of a Facebook Live.
And come harass me on Facebook, follow me, and see how much pain you can make me go through on Facebook.
Which is pretty easy.
So
doesn't take too much.
With Twitter is, I would say, the most forgiving place to do follow, unfollow. But that being said, don't use bots or pay for follows. It's very easy. They're all over the place. You can pay. You'll be hit up on Twitter within a week of being there. People offering you to get you followers.
Yes, don't do that.
A lot of times they're dead accounts. They're also, you probably hear these terms about growing your followers organically. Well, yes, we do things organically. We don't like followers with robots or pesticides. I guess that's the term, right? So, and really it's because it's all about conversions, right? You want to provide content to your listeners. You want to find audience members. None of these followers...
you want to find people who like you and who like your podcast and who want to tune in every week.
It'd be way better to have 1,000 legit people who are interested in your target and in your niche than it would be to have 50,000 dead accounts, people who are just from different countries, people who
from India.
Yeah, who don't really appreciate, I think they're the only
from
reason
Colombia.
There might be reasons in some business strategies to pay for followers and maybe to look like they have authority or something, but in this, I would just don't do it. But as far as the follow, unfollow practice, it's pretty simple and it's effective. I've done a lot of tests on it. Our 10-year-old son, he is a Twitter expert in this, and him and I we do stopwatches, we take Excel worksheets about it. We know exactly... we know some legitimate numbers about how many people will follow you back. But basically, all you have to do, it's a very easy practice, is you just follow a handful of people every day for a couple days. And then after you do that, wait a couple days and unfollow the people who didn't follow you back. Basically, this is a common practice on Twitter, and it isn't spamming. The reason it's not spamming, people will tell you it is, but it's not, because you're actually providing value and content, and you're reaching out to a targeted niche.
Yes.
And that was my next point.
Oh, okay.
Was when you're doing that, when you're following people, don't just the handful of people you follow. That's how I should have said it. Should be a targeted niche. And so there's a few different tips for finding your targeted niche of who to follow. And one of my favorites is to find somebody who has a good amount of followers, who's doing exactly what you're doing. Or somebody who you think their followers would also really like you.
Yeah, like Salsa with Claudio podcast.
Salsa with Claudio, you know, his followers are probably like Tango with Veronica.
Tango with Veronica. Do you like my examples?
I do. I had this whole bunch of stories are playing out in my head now with Claudio and Veronica. They're not good, and they're actually jealousy, rage, a lot of emotions are going through my head right now. I'll kill Claudio. Okay. So they
Does Claudio know how to salsa and you don't?
Yeah, I have no moves. I'm a musician and I can move my body a lot. I mean, I can move my...
From the waist up.
Yeah. I have a waist problem. I have disjointed hips or something. And I have a body unawareness syndrome.
You do.
Okay, so that's basically all you have to do with the following. And then unfollow those who don't follow you back. A great tool is unfollow. And Twitter's okay with unfollow the app. It's not like it's some spammy underground tool. It just groups the people who didn't follow you back into a group and allows you to only unfollow those without having to look through your whole list of people. So it's really handy. And then that's it. But one sweet little tip that I learned from my Twitter expert is if you like somebody's post from within their Twitter feed, or especially if you retweet their post, they are way more likely to follow you back. The follow back ratio skyrockets.
Yes.
So a tip for that is to search for hashtags as a way to follow. So for example, you hashtag Tango. If you hashtag Tango, it has some different options that you can click on. You can see the top hashtag for that, or you can click over on latest. This is great because latest will show you the latest tweets that were just tweeted where people used that hashtag. Those people are probably already going to be more likely to follow you back because they see that you're Tango with Veronica. And from that menu, that feed, that conversation, they call it, a hashtag is a conversation in Twitter, there's a drop-down menu where you are allowed to follow that person and also like or retweet. So it's a very handy place to like and follow without having to go inside of somebody's profile.
Oh, okay.
That's a cool little Twitter tip right there. That's worth something. All right, people? You should be listening to that. And then another little thing is add tweet buttons to your sites. And then the other thing, and what we're going to be asking you to do it too, is ask people to go over to your Twitter account, you know, say, hey, it means a lot to us when we know who's listening, you know, and go tell us what you think about our shows. Make a comment come find us on our Twitter account.
Now that you mentioned that, let's do it.
Yeah. So come over and find us on Twitter.
Yes, find us on Twitter.
Are you listening on iTunes, on Spotify?
Yes.
On Overcast?
Do you like this format?
Yeah.
If you've been following us for a while, you can tell that we've been changing our format a little bit, making it more conversational and more light.
Yeah, do you like that, or do you like the more overly produced stuff,
educational,
with sound bites? And then we like to just go off the rails and do creative, crazy stuff. What most would you like to hear? How do you most want to hear the podcast episodes?
Yes.
come let us know. Find us on Twitter.
We want to make you happy.
Our Twitter handle is @PodSoundSchool. That's the same as all of our other @ handles. We were lucky enough that nobody had that.
Okay.
That it wasn't taken.
Can you tell us a little bit how do you use Twitter for rate and review swaps?
Rate review swaps are really cool. This is also something that might be looked down upon by some people, by some strategists.
Yes.
Even some people on Twitter might be like, well, wait, what do you mean? What a rate review swap is it's where you hit up another podcaster who's on iTunes and you ask them if they would be willing to listen, rate, and review your show. That's not saying, hey, will you just hop over there and give me some fake 5-star review or anything like that? No, it's an honest rating and an honest review. Just
feedback.
Will you give me some feedback on my show? Something that you'll notice is people love this. And it's
you had a great response.
Great response. And we've done this and we love doing rate review swaps. It's such a great way to get to know what's out there and to hear more podcasts. It's an opportunity to reach out to the podcast community and get to know people. We've made so many good friends. That's the whole reason I was on the Unstructured podcast, is because I asked Eric if he wanted to do a rate review swap with me.
Oh.
And that's how I got to know him, and that's what you do. So once people become your friends on Twitter, you're allowed to direct message them. So just start direct messaging people about stuff. Just say, hey, I was wondering if you would be interested in doing a rate review swap on iTunes. And if they say yes, then that's great. You do a rate review swap, and then I send them a screenshot of mine when I'm done, and that's a great way. When it comes to iTunes, it's both a blessing in the skies and a curse when it comes to iTunes that you have. The only thing people can see about your show on iTunes is your description that you put in there and your ratings. Mm-hmm. They don't see how many subscribers you have.
They don't see how many downloads.
So that could be both a blessing and a curse, right?
Mm-hmm.
But so getting a lot of ratings in there is good. Even if they're bad, that's still good too. Mm-hmm. Just ratings, and iTunes will rank you and you'll be more searchable based off of those ratings too. But a lot of people are like, why do I need ratings? I'm not even going to show up on iTunes anyway. I'm so buried in the 500,000 people that are on there. But no, it's actually wonderful. People go to your podcast and they see 100, and that's a lot of work, but just ask a couple people every week. And that is a small ratio too. Not everybody's going to accept that. You're going to see it's about 20% of the people you ask will say yes.
Yeah.
And so ask 10 people, 2 will say yes, and do that once every couple weeks. And you're just going to be drawing more traffic into your show, but you're also going to be reaching out. Be interested in what other people are doing.
Mm-hmm.
I love that quote that you were saying last night from Seth Godin. He says, you should be... Instead of finding customers for your products, find products for your customers.
Mm-hmm.
It's about not being self-serving so much. It's about asking yourself these questions about, who am I creating this podcast for? Is it for me or is it for my audience? And so many people are creating for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important to do that inventory, that self-reflective take inventory before getting into this. Because if you're just creating for yourself, then it's just going to be you listening to it.
Yes. You need to find the balance, because I know that creating for yourself is pretty fun.
It is, yeah.
But it's more fulfilling, and I would argue that even more fun when you create for others and you get that feedback and that
yeah.
I don't know how to say it.
Validation,
yeah.
Yeah,
feedback and validation from other people. So start creating for others if up until this point you're creating for yourself.
Yeah, and I think that and like we were saying, the same thing with taking advice, 50-50. It's the same thing. And you watched somebody on YouTube the other day. She has a YouTube strategy, which is do one for them and one for you. Do some for yourself. Do what you feel like doing. Don't even think about your niche audience at all. And oftentimes that kind of creativity, that kind of staying creative, break the rules, ignore the rules, absolutely. And all of this is just food for thought. And we're here, honestly, just to try to help you grow your show and reach more people. And we're learning how to do it in the process with you.
Yes.
And so as we're, that's about it. But as we're ending with Twitter, there's a few other features that you might want to take advantage with Twitter. And those are polls. Polls can be a really fun, creative way to change up your Twitter strategy. I haven't fallen into polls very much myself, only because, man, we just have so much on our plate. We should probably start doing some polls, though. Also, a few polls that I have done, I wasn't creative enough about writing them to where they were engaged with a lot. The one place...
And sometimes I have to check your humor, because things that you think that they're funny,
they're not very funny.
Not very funny.
No.
Yeah.
I'm kind of funny when I'm not trying to be funny.
Yeah.
That's when people find me the most funny. Yeah. But I think I'm funny. And so there we go, who am I creating for? Right?
Yeah.
And then the other thing that I think is really valuable on Twitter is to create message groups. So here you are, you're reaching out to fellow podcasters. Do that a lot. Reach out to business owners who are in your niche. Reach out to people who are trying to promote themselves, because that's really why we're all on Twitter, even though it is about our customers. It is about driving business towards us. It is about driving listens to us, because we do want to be validated, or we do want to sell our product, or we do want to be heard, or we do want to deliver our message, or we do want to entertain. But these message groups are really cool. And specifically, you can do retweet message groups. So the same way you hit people up to ask them to do a rate review swap, you can create a message group. And all you have to do that is message more than one person. So when you're setting up a direct message, you just add 2 people to it, and it will become a message group. And you are the admin of the group, but anybody can add people to the group. So in the title of the group, you can just say what the group is. So you could say retweet group, 1 tweet a day. So you ask people, do you want to be part of a retweet group where you can only post once a day, but we'll all retweet you once a day. And then all of a sudden you get 30, 40, you can only have 50 people in a message group, but you get 30 or 40 people in a message group, and you all have similar interests, you're all in a similar niche, or you're all podcasters. And when you release a new episode, you drop a link to your tweet into the message group, and everybody retweets it. That's very powerful on Twitter. And then finally is Twitter has analytics that are very useful you can look at. And I have ignored those for a long time, and I've just now started looking at them. Analytics per each tweet, those are really good to look at. So as you're tweeting, start taking note, take inventory of how your tweets are performing, and make a note, like, why is this my top performing tweet? And Twitter has in their analytics, they show you what your top performing tweets were for the month, who had the biggest reach, why they had the biggest reach, things like that. And you'll start to dial down. You'll start to know, based off of my followers, it's best when I tweet at 2:15 p.m. And on Fridays, people love it when I tweet at 11 in the morning. I always get a lot of engagement then. So then in your scheduling, maybe you don't want to schedule for 20 tweets every day. Maybe that's too much for your brain to handle. You just simply do not have the time to automate that many tweets. Well, then make your tweets count more by targeting when you tweet them, by paying attention to your analytics. Twitter's huge. Don't take it for granted. Use it, optimize it, and you will see results. You will see conversions. And finally, I have to say, just based off of our own experience, as we're starting to change our marketing strategy from go check out our most recent episode on YouTube to here's an interesting article you'll probably find interesting, our tweets are getting way more engagements, and they are actually getting conversions. And the conversions on Twitter are very low. We've had tweets that have 86,000 impressions that only have 15 link clicks.
Yeah, don't get scared or discouraged.
Yeah.
It's just
but on the other hand,
on
the other hand, we have tweets that only have 150 impressions, which is just somebody saw it in their timeline, and they get 5 or 6 link clicks. So you'll reach people will see your tweet 1,000 times, and they're going to click. One person will click on your link. That's just how Twitter works. And you'll get one person over to your podcast every day. And that's great. And if you nurture that person and you continue providing content for them on different platforms, not only are they going to go over to your podcast, they're going to come find you on Instagram. They're going to go see if you have what's going on your Facebook channel. They're going to become a fan. They're going to go from that top part of your sales funnel of just being interested in you to actually being engrossed in your messages. They like you a lot. And then they fall into that bottom level of your sales funnel, which is where you can sell them things, which is where they become a fan. And that's the whole idea of all of this, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
Well, anything else you want to add, Veronica?
I'm tired.
Yeah.
You talk a lot.
I'm a very talkative person.
Yes. No, what I'm just going to say is don't forget to join us at our Facebook group, Podcasting for Buses. And also come and join us on Patreon.
Yeah.
And for those of you who don't know what Patreon is a platform that allows our audience, you people, to be members of our Patreon account and support creators like us.
It's kind of like a pledge. You give a monthly pledge. It's almost like crowdfunding, but for artists. And it's become very popular with podcasting. You probably, if you listen to any other podcast, you always hear podcasters talking about us. Come join us on Patreon.
Yes.
And that's a good thing to do as a podcaster too, is get a Patreon page and find ways. And we're growing over there, and we have a goal after we reach 2,000 patrons. We're going to open Pod Sound School in Espanol.
Yes.
For Spanish speakers and specifically for Central and Latin America.
Yes. Come and join us and support us. That will allow us to bring more people on our team, to create more content and resources for you. We love what we do. We just need the support.
Yeah, we need the support. We need to keep the doors to the Pod Sound School open.
Yes.
So that would help out a lot. And then also, if we have tons of useful information, and just like this, the next few weeks here on our podcast are going to be about social media, the same is going to happen over on our YouTube channel. We've already had one Instagram video up, and we're going to have another one up this week.
Yes, come and join me as I show you the intricacies of Instagram.
Oh, man, and she has some really
We're going to Instagramming it up.
Yeah,
We want to look cool.
Killer advice and tips and tricks that are just going to explode your Instagram.
Yes.
Yeah.
To blow your mind.
So that's really cool. And then we'll have a Twitter video up there too as well. And that's fun too. We also have a blog you can check out. It's podpreneurblog.com, or you can find it at podsoundschool.com/blog. All these links are always in our episode description.
Yes.
And, we love you guys a lot, and we really appreciate your support. And keep letting us know about these episodes. We've been hearing that the conversational stuff people like. So let us know if you are liking it. And we'll catch you next time.
No más. Gracias.